Good morning. My name is Brian. I've been a member of this church since 2006. I sing with the choir, and I want to discuss a few points of business as we get started. If you're visiting us for the first time today, you're especially welcome. Phyllis at the table back there is taking names and can get you oriented with information. If you have little ones, our greeters can show you the way to the nursery, which is available during the service for the children, 6 and under. And please silence your cell phones, even the ones you don't think are going to ring. Our opening hymn is number 291 in the Gray Hymnal, Die Gedanken sind frei. And this is a traditional Alsatian folk song, which was a popular protest in Germany in the 1840s, again in the 1940s, here in the 1950s and 60s, and we're kind of bringing it back a little bit now. So please rise in spirit or body to channel the spirit of free thought with hymn 291, the first 2 verses only.
Let's be clear about something from the very beginning. Book banning is not inherently bad. We condemn book banning like it's stupid and Sisyphean, but given the right circumstances, we who hate book banning would be perpetuators of it. If you are a parent, you've probably told your child at one point that you don't want them to see a certain TV show or movie. When I was a kid, my room was also the computer room. My folks would come into my room all the time to look at an email or print out some papers. And one day, my mother came into my bedroom to print out some papers, and she saw me watching Family Guy. She knew nothing of the show, but after spending a few minutes listening to it as she's printing stuff out, she says, "Is this show for kids?" And I actually didn't know. It was a cartoon, and all the cartoons I ever saw were for kids, so I assumed it was for kids. And I liked it too, so who cares? I tell her I think it's for kids. She says, "I don't want you watching that anymore." Is that wrong? She thought the show was inappropriate for her child, and she told me to stop watching that. She has the right to do that. Parents have the right to do that. And she was right, by the way. I wouldn't let my kid watch Family Guy if he was in 6th grade, which I was. I didn't get most of the jokes anyway, by the way. I was a very sheltered kid. I apply the same logic towards Family Guy as I do toward books. Mom never told me not to read a book, but if she saw me reading one that she found inappropriate, she would absolutely tell me to put it away. No one has the right to tell her she can't do that. Here's the thing, though. The government is not my mother. The government is nobody's mother. Historically, when the government bans a book, a movie, or a TV show, it's not because it uses naughty words or it's too sexually explicit. It's usually because it displays values that are a threat to the status quo. The Nazis banned books written by Jewish authors. The Nazis viewed Jews as a threat. The Irish government, for 38 years, gave the Catholic Church total power on what books to publish and not publish. The Irish viewed non-Catholics as a threat. South Africa would ban books critical of apartheid, and if a book was banned, they would label the book communist. South Africa viewed criticism as a threat and associated it with the worst thing you can be called in the Cold War era. When a government bans books, it's because the books go against the narrative they're trying to push. Parents have the right to rule over their children, but governments do not have the right to rule over their citizens. Quite the opposite, really. The government has its right to rule from us, says so in the Declaration of Independence. Whereas other countries and cultures value collectivism, being an effective part of the system and prioritizing the greater good of all over yourself, our country and our history and our culture values the individual, the individual's rights, the individual's freedom. And just like someone shouldn't be restricted in what they buy or what they own or what they believe, they should not be restricted in what they learn and what they read. I'll tell you a book I read that my mother didn't know about. It was a manga. For those who don't know, a manga is basically a comic book made in Japan. It's those 8 books right there. At the Miami Library, I checked out 8 manga books that were about the life and teachings of the Buddha. Why I picked them up, I do not know, I do not remember. I was drawn to them. But here's the thing. The books were accurate to India in 500 BC. The women didn't wear shirts or bras. So as a 13-year-old boy, if the Eastern spiritualism didn't get to me, the topless girls did. But I learned so much about the Buddha. I learned so much about his teachings. Those books forever altered my understanding of God, the universe, and our part in it all. And once I got a career and started making money, one of the very first things I bought was a set of those books for me in my personal house. If my mother found out I was reading those books, she would immediately take them away from me. And I'm glad she didn't. There's a comic book out there called Mouse. It's about the Holocaust. It's right between the roses and the mother candle there. When McMinn County, Tennessee, just south of Pigeon Forge, when their school board banned Mouse, they said it was because there was an illustration of a nude woman in it. It reminds me of my Buddha books. Mouse had one illustration of a naked lady in it. My Buddha books had hundreds, and I survived. I'm better for it, because it's more than obscenity, isn't it? There's important knowledge to be learned in those books, and our Puritan roots are holding us back from having better educated kids. Whether it's on Buddhism or the Holocaust or whatever, our government, both local and national, needs to readjust their priorities. Ban poverty, not books.
Good morning. I'm Wanda, and I'm a member of the Religious Service Committee, and you'll be seeing several of us today because we are in charge of the service. So I say a welcome to you. Our mission today is threefold. First of all, we want to talk about the state of book challenges and bans in our country, not just in Tennessee, but throughout our country. Secondly, you'll get to hear some of our personal picks. So that's one of the reasons why you see all these displayed here. We all got to pick several. It was hard for me to narrow down, but I was forced to do so. And lastly, we want to leave you with some ways to resist the trend that is now pretty much on every news port on the challenges and book bans. So those are our missions for today. We know that we are not perfect in this community, but we are wonderful and messy. We are a work in progress that earnestly tries to do the right thing. So on behalf of this congregation, I say welcome to you if you are a first-time member, first-time visitor, and looking for a spiritual home, welcome. But if I see your familiar face week after week, I say welcome to you as well. In all of our beautiful diversity of experience, education, stage on our journey, origin, sexuality, age, gender, I say welcome to you. I value who you are and what you bring to our church family. We move into a very sacred part of the UU tradition, and that's the lighting of our chalice. And this morning, Beth, who's also a member of the Religious Service Committee, is going to light our chalice for us. And she tells me that one of her favorite books is Cry, the Beloved Country. So Beth, if you can get that chalice lit for us. We light this chalice remembering the freedoms long established in our nation, our freedom of speech, our freedom of the press, our freedom from the establishment of religion. We light this chalice honoring those who exemplify protecting those freedoms, our librarians, our booksellers, our teachers, our authors, our journalists. We light this chalice so that by its light we may read all the books with archaic language, the books with offensive material, the books which affirm the diversity of the human race, books which normalize our varied sexualities, and books which share our multidimensional perspectives of history. May we bask in the glow of its light this morning as we illuminate, brighten, and radiate because of the books we've already read and for the books that we are yet to read. It's time for our story for all ages, and I think you'll be especially informed today. It's a time for the young at heart, and parents to make their way down front, and Beth is going to delight us with another bit of information about books. So come down to see her now, and she will be glad to share that with you.
Good to see all of you.
On a very special long weekend. As you've already heard, we're talking about banning books today. We're most bothered by this when it's our government or a small group of powerful people stopping everyone from being able to access that book. As Bradley pointed out, your mom and your dad do have some say in this. They're not quite the same as the government. I'm going to show you 3 examples of fun kid books that have been banned somewhere in this country. You may even know some of these yourself. Have you ever read And Tango Makes 3? It's a true story. It's really quite special. It's a sweet picture book based on the story of 2 male penguins at Central Park Zoo in New York who raised a chick together. The book has been banned because some people don't like that it portrays a family of 2 dads. We just think it's a beautiful story of love of parents. And the most unusual one, which I hadn't met before, is called Anti-Racist Baby. It's trying to teach babies from the start about building a more fair and equal world. Anti-Racist Baby introduces the youngest readers and the grown-ups in their lives to the concept and power of anti-racism and forming a just society. The book was banned in some places, you know what? Because people who don't like it claim it's teaching children to become racist. That's the exact opposite of the point of the book. Maybe you can read this and decide for yourself. And by the way, the books are all up here. Pop up after the service and have a look. And how about this one? I know you know Hop on Pop. You guys know silly old Dr. Seuss, right? It's a fun and silly, simple rhymes for kids who are just starting to learn to read. Maybe some of you started there. You want to try a little bit of it? Oh my goodness. All tall, we are all tall. All small, we are all small. Hop, pop. We like to hop. We like to hop on top of Pop. Stop. You must not hop on Pop. Really complicated, isn't it? Snack, snack, eat a snack with brown and black. And it goes on quite a bit like that. I'm hoping if you haven't seen this one, be sure to borrow it. So why on earth would anybody want to ban that book? You want to guess? Other than its very silly rhymes. Well, some parents, This was up in Toronto, thought it was dangerous and horrible for you. 10 years ago, there was a formal complaint that it said it encouraged children to be violent against their fathers by hopping on them. I hope it didn't go very far. You know it's a silly book. You know your father probably likes to be hopped on anyway. Can you think of any reason that a book should ever be banned? That's a big question, isn't it? My ultimate reader here. No reason that a book should be banned. Absolutely not. Of course, that's different than saying, okay, I'm not ready for this book. Mom and Dad get a chance to say that, yeah. So be thinking about that as you listen to some of the other stories. And before you go back to your seats, just so you remember, you know, we're collecting money for hunger in America. And this is our little basket that you put your pennies in if you have them. And this is a bookmark for each of you. So take one and pass it on. And you know what a bookmark is for. You stick it in the place where you're reading. Go ahead and pass it around. And then you can hop on back to your seats.
We continue our presentation about books, and we are blessed today for a musical gift from Aaron and James. And it's a collaboration from them, and it's, if you're not familiar with Pete Seeger, it's his song, "Oh, Had I a Golden Thread." And this song shows what we could do if we only had the right tools in which to do them. Books, you know, are like tools that can help us foster empathy, imagination, critical thinking skills, and show that we are not alone. When we have access to books, it's unlimited. And if we don't have access, well, it's like somebody took our tools away from us.
Oh, had I a golden thread and a needle so fine that I would weave show my brothers and sisters my rainbow design, 'cause I would bind up this sorry world with hand and heart and mind. Oh, hand and heart and mind. Oh, had I a golden thread and a needle so fine, I would weave a magic spell of rainbow design, of rainbow design.
Come to this community with all that you are. Your joys and your concerns are welcome here. We share our moments of joys and sorrows with us through using these candle cards, if you're with us in person, or by emailing the Reverend at minister@hvuuc.org with the words candle card in the subject line. Please make sure to indicate whether or not you would like the card to be read aloud in the service, which is still being broadcast publicly on YouTube. A candle of gratitude for the caring team and all of you who are supporting and loving me and my family, or the family of my dear friend who is in hospice. That's from Linda Good. A candle of joy for William Kaufman, whose second book, Holston, has been published and is findable on Amazon. William's first book, Unaka, won a literary award, and his third book, Watauga, is well underway. I'm noticing a theme. William's books focus on telling the stories of people who would otherwise be forgotten, many from this area. Congratulations to William. A candle of gratitude from the Social Justice Committee to everyone who participated in the Reclaim Our Vote postcard event last Sunday to help encourage registered voters to vote in the general election this November. A special thanks to Diane, who did a fabulous job organizing both this and the June event, as well as Gwen and Dave, who donated pizzas for both events as well. Thanks Lynn and Don for picking up the pizzas. A candle of concern for librarians and educators who are forced by pressure groups to remove books and stories that offer our kids representation from different skin tones, identities, cultures, and truthful history. And a candle of joy for the official American Library Association's hosting of Banned Book Week, which will be held September 22nd through the 28th. Good for them and all the libraries and bookstores that participate. If you wish to light your own silent candle, approach the side of the table that is closest to you, and the closest candle keeper will assist you. Please light the candles at the back of the table first so that no one will has to reach over an open flame. If you wish for us to light a candle for you, please raise your hand until I acknowledge you, and I will ensure a candle is lit for your intention. Our community is so much larger than those of us who are in the building this morning, so we light a candle to hold space for those who are not physically present with us, but are ever in our hearts and minds. we light a final candle for all that remains unspoken in our hearts and minds. Did you know the George Orwell book 1984 was banned in the Soviet Union for being anti-communist and was banned in the US for being pro-communist? When what it really was anti-authoritarian. We will start our banned book report segment with statistics from friend of our church, Mary Gablin.
Good morning. I feel honored to speak today about the issue of what books should or should not be available to students and patrons, be they public or school librarians. First, what is the difference between a challenge book and banning a book? A challenge is an attempt to remove or restrict materials based on these objections of people or a group. Banning is the actual removal of those materials. Books being challenged has risen dramatically since 2004, when 390 were challenged. Last year alone, it rose to 4,240, up from 2,571 in 2022. A little bit about my background. I received my master's degree of library media from ETSU. In Tennessee schools, librarians are required to have a master's degree. I worked a number of years in various local schools and spent the majority of my career working at Chuckydoke Middle School in Greene County. This is a school of grades 6 through 8 with close to 500 students. Most librarians I know practice self-censoring. Sometimes we would decide a book really didn't fit the guidelines. It wasn't appropriate for the curriculum, it wasn't appropriate for the age level, or it wasn't appropriate for the interest level. Back then, in Greene County, we had a policy in place for those that wanted to challenge a book. A form was filled out to note the specific page or pages for the dispute. And over the course of my career, very few pages were ever filled out. But in recent years, pressure groups and legislatures have presented long lists of banned books or challenge books. Texas leads the way with its attempts to restrict access to nearly 2,350 titles. The most challenged book, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Florida has House Bill 1069 with its list of 1,600 books. Now, Florida's list includes those already mentioned and up here, as well as the Bible, dictionaries, and the Guinness Book of World Records. Tennessee is among the top 10 states for book challenges, with more than 300 titles that have faced scrutiny lately. Libraries have been caught in the crosshairs of a raging culture war and attempts to diminish the identities and voices of marginalized people by removing books about them. In fact, books challenging diversity with queer and trans perspective are prime targets. There is a pattern where concerns tend to mirror whatever big social changes are at any particular time. And often these targets are those that tell true stories of racism and genocide. It flows from a certain group of parents who are afraid of having those difficult conversations. Now, challengers claim that educators are trying to indoctrinate our kids by providing access to texts that depict violence and sexual themes. Librarians have been threatened and compared to pedophiles. The issue is, when is one person's disapproval limits access for an entire community? Now, how many of you guys ever played the dictionary game in high school where you would look up different words and find out meanings? Or maybe looked at the pictures that were in National Geographic? In my junior high in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, I remember passing around the book The Group by Mary McCarthy. It was published back in 1963. There are pages dog-eared that dealt with abortion, homosexuality, and birth control. That book was brought to school from someone's home and enjoyed by many of us students. But recent rulings have attempted to slap librarians with criminal penalties over books that some might consider obscene. Of course, the book Mouse, mentioned by Bradley earlier, is a graphic novel about the Holocaust. It was recently banned in McMahon County here in Tennessee, and yes, I had that book in my library. There are now librarians and teachers now rethinking their careers. Their control over their classrooms and libraries are now being lessened by outside interest groups, such as Moms for Liberty and others. Banning books is an overall loss for school, libraries, and citizens, as it only limits human growth. Now, just an update, I just checked, I'm always reading about this, and a group of publishers and renowned authors, along with students and their parents, are suing the state of Florida over its decision of the state banning law. Just this week, on Thursday, August 29th, Random House and others had a press conference, and they are suing the state of Florida about the House Bill of 1069. Thank you.
Catherine couldn't be here today, but she shares her favorite banned book, Annie on My Mind, by Nancy Garden. These are Catherine's words. I have a very personal connection to the banning of this book. My mother is a librarian, and I was volunteering at the library as young as 14, and this particular book caused a big stink with a group of patrons who demanded it be taken out of circulation. It's a sweet novel about a young lesbian couple and the bigotry they face while coming to terms with their feelings. I was in deep Bible Belt, Georgia, and heard lots of negative messages about being gay and was coming to terms with my own sexuality. I was volunteering in the department where the librarians had relented and taken it off the shelf. But when the lead in that saw me looking at it, I'm fairly certain she pretended not to notice. I smuggled the book home, and I still have that same copy that was removed from circulation. When I looked it up to see if it was a widespread ban or if it was just an issue in my little corner of the Bible Belt, I found a lot of interesting history. It was, in fact, so controversial that it was even burned in a case in Kansas City after a group also campaigned to have it removed from library shelves. The author has gone on to campaign for children's reading freedom. Brian's top pick is the book Jurgen by James Cable. Published in 1919, Jurgen is a classic tale of comic fantasy, which defined the genre for later writers such as Terry Pratchett. The titular character embarks on an epic quest, encounters romance and adventures, and journeys through heaven and hell. Only a year later, the New York Society for the Prevention of Vice declared the book obscene and banned all displays and sales of the book. The cool thing was that a letter of protest was quickly created by literary and creative peers, some very famous names, expressing, quote, vital concerns for the legitimate freedom of artistic expression in the United States, unquote. The judge on the case read the book and didn't see a problem. The case was acquitted in court in 1922. Woohoo. Ellender's favorite challenge book came up during this time for all ages, and Tango Makes Three by Justin Richardson and Peter Parnell. Since it first came out almost 20 years ago, the book has been consistently challenged as being unsuitable for young children. This book is often mentioned as sparking the modern book ban frenzy we know today. As Mary mentioned earlier, modern pressure groups seem to aggressively target LGBTQIA people and acceptance. This is part of why our welcoming community here in this space is as important as ever. Rosemary's top pick is Nickeled and Dimed, Undercover in Low-Wage America by Barbara Ehrenreich. First published in 2001, the author describes the events occurring between 1998 and 2000, during which she went undercover, taking low-wage jobs to tell a story rarely given a voice. Low-wage workers, those scraping by, who are told to chase the American dream and to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. The author was inspired in part by the rhetoric surrounding welfare reform, which promised that a job, any job, can be the ticket for a better life. But how does anyone survive, let alone prosper, on minimum wage? It doesn't seem much has changed for minimum wage workers since the book came out. It has been challenged and banned in many places as promoting economic fallacies and socialist ideas, as well as promoting the use of drugs, profanity, anti-Christian sentiment, and a biased portrayal of capitalism. Rosemary is frustrated that so many in our country want to hide an uncomfortable reality by banning books about the truth. Wanda has shelves full of banned books and a hard time choosing just one. After holding her feet to the fire to choose a top, it is Pulitzer Prize-winning To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Since its publication in 1960, the novel about a white lawyer's defense of a black man against a false rape charge by a white woman has become one of the most frequently challenged books in the U.S. Challenges from the 60s through the 80s usually claimed it as immoral and cited the book's strong language, discussion of sexuality and rape, and frequent use of the N-word. As recently as 2017, a Mississippi school board simply said, "It makes people uncomfortable." Yet often the whole point to classics is that they challenge people in ways they think about things. To offer some balance to this debate, some educators agree that it shouldn't be removed from schools and libraries, yet it isn't the best tool for curriculum. Quote, "It's not the best book to teach white kids about racism because it grounds its narrative in the experiences of a white narrator and presents her father as the white savior," says Kristen Wilson. Reverend Tiffany's top pick is A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. I have this one. She has referenced it here in the pulpit in the past. Long considered a classic, Zinn tells the story of U.S. history from the perspective of America's women, factory workers, African Americans, Native Americans, working poor, and immigrant laborers. It ignores the usual history book tradition of relating the exploits of presidents and politicians, instead focusing on the real people whose efforts had led to real change and advancement in this country: labor leaders, war resistors, fugitive slaves. In 2017, Arkansas State Representative Kim Hendren sponsored a bill to prohibit any public school or charter school from using the book in its curriculum. Why? We can only guess. Could it be that the book is critical of the actions of America's greatest heroes, calling attention to their often whitewashed bombings, massacres, cover-ups, and other misdeeds, essentially for making politicians look bad? Justification in the bill is never given. The list of books and reasons for them being challenged goes on and on. Check out the list by the door, and you'll see a lot of the classics you grew up with. If you search for challenged and banned books, you will find rich resources and fascinating articles online. After the service, feel free to look at the display of books here. Each of these books has a sheet inside indicating where and why it has been challenged or banned. Maybe the next social event here, you can ask someone sitting near you what their top banned book is and learn something about each other.
I don't know about you, but I've been pretty well informed today, and I'm glad if you're here to share this service with us. So we thank you very much for being here. It's been a pleasure to serve as your coordinator. We have a couple announcements. Well, let me go back to the extinguishing before Mary throws something at me. A book. She'll throw a book at me, that's for sure. We unite against hate and bigotry here at this church family. that seeks to suppress and silence the voices that should be heard. We uphold the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and we call for the freedom and the right for all stories to be shared freely. Thank you for being here today. I have a couple announcements, if you'll bear with me until we get to our coffee hour. We have a very important climate change event that is scheduled for Saturday, September 28th, and you'll see the details on your program. If you'll draw your attention to that, please. It's a very important factor that you can be involved in. We also like to send out a big thank you to the two people in our kitchen this morning, Michelle and Mike, who has tackled the coffee hour. And they want to remind us, they do, and Peggy, that it's not an exclusive club that you have to join. You just have to show up and put some coffee grounds in and plug it in, and miraculously, coffee can come out of those pots. And we appreciate anybody that takes an opportunity to sign up for that, and there is a sign-up sheet back in the back for that. So we encourage you to do that, and the people that go back there to fill up their coffee cups will say a real big thank you. So say appreciation to Michelle and Mike this morning.
We end our service with this month's clothing hymn, Blue Boat Home, a favorite for many of us. It reminds us that we are in this journey together. It is in your thin teal hymnal, number 1064. At this time, we will also be passing the offering plate. The contributions that you make to us during this offering supports the way we build each other up within this community, and also gives us the resources we need to stretch out into the wider world to make a positive impact. If you're making a pledge payment, please mark it as such. And thank you so much for your contributions. Please rise with us and body your spirit for our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home, number 1064.
Mountains and plains,
We've presented you with some sobering facts. The scope of the problem can feel heavy. You may wonder, what can I do? Here are some ideas. Support anti-banning efforts organized by the American Library Association, the ACLU, and other organizations. Some helpful links are in your order of service, and handouts are in the front lobby. Support our local libraries via use, attendance, and donations. When banned books are shown in your libraries and bookstores, tell them you appreciate that. Reading and sharing banned books is an act of rebellion. Encourage your book club to discuss rebellious reads. Join the Freedom to Read Foundation. It's dedicated to the legal and financial defense of intellectual freedom, especially in libraries. Share banned books that are age-appropriate with your child and talk with them about what they learn. If you know someone who is a steward of a free little library, pop a banned book in theirs. There is such a place in front of Brian and Rosemary's house. You'll find challenged and banned books in our own lending library in the back, plus the bookshelf of children's books in the lobby of the res up the hill. Borrow them, read them, share them, and vote out local legislatures fixated on banning books. Anyone wishing to look at the books here on display, they all have a page about them and why and where they were challenged or banned. Also, if anyone wants to talk after the service, please come by. Rosemary will be here. Feel free to take a handout for future reading or a bookmark. Go in peace and rebellion. Yay, church.